right, good day to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of your societal program, Focal Point. We all know when it clocks 11 a.m. by our clocks, it's time for us to dissect, it's time for us to treat, it's time for us to diagnose a particular ill that is plaguing our societies. It shouldn't be a surprise that we're sitting right here today, or I am sitting right here today. How are you doing, and how has the weekend been so far? I hope everything is okay. I hope you are doing fine, and I hope you're ready for us to dive into this segment of the program. Well, I want you to first and foremost tell somebody to tell another body that Focal Point is live on air, and we are getting into the part 2 of our previous topic, which is a housing crisis in Buea. What can be done? The part 2. Housing crisis in Buea, what can be done? Last week we had a lot to say about the landlords, we had a lot to say about even the tenants, and we went further to include the brokers. But the one thing that still remains unsaid and undone is finding out what we can do as a people legally when certain things, or when such things arise in our communities, or when such things arise even in our neighborhood, when a landlord or a tenant is doing something that is actually not good, if the landlord is being recalcitrant or the tenant is being recalcitrant. So as usual, I'm not alone in the studio. I come with brilliant minds, and like last time we had Evangelist starting off the show, so he's still going to start off this edition of the program. There's also a number on your screens. There are going to be 2 of them, Orange and MTN. You can tell us what you think. You can also send in whatever worries you that you would love for us to talk about, you would love for us to dissect regarding the housing crisis in Buea. Quickly, let's say hello to Evangelist Sinjo. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. It's a Friday.
Yes.
A bright Friday. We're going towards weekend in Buea, where it is fondly referred to at the time of legendary hospitality. Of course, it's a weekend month. The only weekend is relaxation. The weekend is time for family.
Yes.
And the weekend is time to go back again to the church.
Yes.
So thank you, Lord. So that is how the weekend is usually characterized. We are glad that we're here today to continue from where we stopped Wednesday, and to say it's a disturbing issue, and we think that last Wednesday our contribution probably might have helped the stakeholder in questions. I'm talking about the tenants, I'm talking about the landlord, the government, of course, the brokers, the bailiff, the lawyers. These are the partner, or these are the stakeholders as far as housing is concerned.
Exactly.
That if you are dealing with housing, in one at one moment you will come across any of these people that are going to come into play.
All right, Evangelist, we thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, today, like we did announce last week, we'll be having a legal mind in the studio. She'll be making her way sooner than later. She has the yam and the knife in her hand. When I make that statement, it's simply because she is the one who is to educate us legally on the measures we could take when certain things are occurring. We raised so many points, too many of them. Evangelist, I do not know, when you left the studio, did you have an inspiration of more things concerning the housing crisis in Buea that you would love to add to what you said last week?
Yes, of course. I immediately when I left the studio, I was confronted with some neighbors and friends who did follow the program.
Yes.
First thing is, they did appreciate our articulation and our presentation, and they actually confirmed that the topic is apt, is timely,
Yes.
and that we did a very good job at addressing some of the issue which are actually taking the housing issue in Buea. And one thing they pointed out is that everything still boils down to the landlords, owners of these houses. given that, like I said last time, it's a sector that is not well organized. It's a sector that's not well organized. One, they do not pay taxes. If I understand correctly, I don't remember where they pay taxes, and they use as opportunity to further exploit the tenants. Everyone across is the persistent increase of rent, house rent, with no justification in terms of either increase in the size of the current apartment or the house. No meaningful renovation has been done. Probably, if a tenant, or rather, if a landlord will want to come and do an external renovation, probably either building a fence, doing painting, and you want to see that the tenant the landlord will increase the rent. And so we still say that landlords, they need to give enough reason why they should increase rent overnight.
It's not even a matter of enough reasons. We should be able to see probably why the rent has been increased. If to say I stay in a studio and you want to increase the rent, probably you've increased the sizes of the room.
Yes.
Or maybe you've added an external toilet for me, or an external kitchen for me, or you have why not maybe built a storage for me, something that makes my life easier.
Yeah.
You cannot add something that makes your life easier or makes your compound look better in the eyes of other people, does not even benefit me, because sometimes the tenants live in that house far too long before that renovation comes in and you are increasing the rent. But that's just by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, what I want us to do together at this material point in time is while we are giving the lawyer time to make her way into the studio and start talking and dishing out all the legal terminologies and the legal backings that we need to know as a people, let's dive back to the machines and meet the broadcaster who is going to play you and I small mutumbu. Right, let's relax, because today we are getting into the core of the program. Today we have to learn. Today we have to solve this problem once and for all, and it is only on Focal Point. So this is also the time for you to tell somebody who knows another body who is a fervent viewer of Focal Point that, well, this is that edition we've all been waiting for. So come on board, come one, come all. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
On dit quoi, Japi?
On faisait ça comme ça, jeudi et vendredi on partageait l'open café. Caca répondant, nous avons avec les frappants. On était tous comme ça, personne ne pouvait manquer. Tu voyais dans la TP, toujours dans le système. Avec son maracas, toujours en quai de grincer. Les gars nous regardaient quand ça passait à la télé. Ils étaient là comme ça, tu voyais les cocos, les présidents d'un côté. Tu vois dans tout le monde, assis dans le système, personne ne tape les mains. Ils font donc comme si ils n'aimaient pas le mollet. Ils font donc comme si ils n'étaient pas intéressés, man, pourtant dans le cœur. Il veut se masser, il veut se masser, dans la tête là. Il veut se masser, il veut se masser. D'abord, voilà, je les garde mollet, ils chantent rien. Faut le copier-coller, ils font que des bruits. Moi je m'appelle ministre de la République. Je suis un DG, un caca responsable. Je y a mon long macosa, et la rumba, de Valet et Popa. Mais quand les mêmes disent ça, il fait qu'on ça l'arrête pas. On dit ça le cogne pas, mais pour dans son cœur. Je vois dans tout le monde, assis dans le système, personne ne tape les mains. Ils font donc comme si ils n'aimaient pas le mollet. Ils font donc comme si ils n'étaient pas intéressés, man, pourtant dans le cœur. Il veut se masser, il veut se masser, dans la tête là. Il veut se masser, il veut se masser. Maître Cosmos,
Fuis avec eux.
il va mettre en solo de Pretoria. Abedena Boris, Serge Toulou, 5 étoiles DJ. Hey, Annick Minaj. Voici venu la danse des immatures. Non, je vous l'ai dit, les immatures. Hey, rankam so, reggae, rankam so, rankam so.
suis mise à genoux et là pour me confesser. Je lui ai dit à papa, tu connais tous mes péchés, tu connais mon point faible, mais mon point faible le plus fatal, c'est l'amour qui va me tuer, c'est l'amour qui va me détruire, c'est l'amour qui va me finir, parce que quand je suis amoureuse, je perds tous mes sens. Est-ce qu'il y a un antidote pour ne plus aimer? Est-ce qu'il y a un traitement pour ne plus aimer? Est-ce qu'il y a un marabout pour me guérir papa wamo? Maye boye c'est wama, maye café domtam. Moi je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, parce que l'amour m'a fait trop de problèmes, l'amour me cause des soucis. Je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, ma voici encore amoureuse. Je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, ma voici encore mordue. Je ne voulais plus, je ne voulais plus. Manani yang manata muraze, mamora twana nyalabma, manong malabga mu wafan. Hey yang zema bi mu wafanu, pati l'American dom tame, matabi tugasie, matabi tugandom tamo. Je suis l'esclave d'amour, et puis l'on c'est l'amour qui va me finir, et c'est l'amour qui va m'anéantir. Est-ce qu'il y a un antidote pour ne plus aimer? Est-ce qu'il y a un traitement pour ne plus aimer? Je ne voulais plus aimer, mais me voici amoureuse. Je ne voulais plus aimer, me voici esclave d'amour. Je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, me voici encore amoureuse. Je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, je ne voulais plus aimer, me voici encore mordue. Je suis le magnifique, le sorcier Bangou. L'amour me tient, l'amour m'embourrit. Je suis mordu, l'amour me tue. Je suis piégé. L'amour me tient, l'amour me tue, je suis mordu, l'amour me fuit, le gars qui tombe toujours amoureux.
All right, you're welcome back, beautiful viewers of High Television, and I am finally happy and relaxed because the set is complete as we finally have our lawyer on set. You are going to meet her in a while. I just want to ask Evangelist Cindy, how do you feel now that your worries will be channeled to the right office?
Of course, I'm super excited, Madam Moderator.
Yes.
I want to say welcome to Madam Ako, the lawyer, which of course on Wednesday we have be
We
asking
kept on saying
series-
she's going to be here,
series
and
of questions
yes.
about. I would remember I said that I felt that the lawyers are working in complexity with
The landlords.
With the landlords because because like I said,
Yes.
they always use them to come and
Bully the tenants, exactly.
So I have always had an extreme position as far as lawyers are concerned with the housing issue. So, but again, that is my perception. Probably in the course of the program,
You change it.
To explain to us, like the broker defended himself, though he didn't win the case. At the end of the day. So I'm so much excited, just like our viewers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly tilt our cameras as we meet Madame Ako Doris Bate, who is serving as our lawyer right here on set. Good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning.
And you're welcome on the program.
Thank you so much.
So, madam, when you saw that topic or that question, housing crisis in Buea, what can be done? What interested you in the whole matter?
It's a very, very technical topic, and I think before now, I think about 5 years ago, houses in Buea did not really have an issue as per price, you know, but over the last 2 years, especially this 2023, it's becoming a core concern. Tenants are crying, landlords are increasing rent, landlords are crying, the economy is strong, and so on. So it's very, very technical. I found interest in it because personally, as a lawyer, one of the things that my law firm does is to manage houses
Okay.
on behalf of landlords.
Okay.
So I happen to manage a number of buildings.
Okay.
Yes, so it's an area of law I'm quite interested in.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. It means we had just the right person right here. So Evangelist has already thrown something your way. It's not something that was on the cards, by the way. He said most of the times the landlords use the lawyers to bully the tenants. Probably that's why many tenants don't even find it interesting to move to you or to other lawyers and talk about what's going on in the compound.
Well, I won't say it's quite challenging to say the landlords use the lawyers to bully the tenants. Well, I think it's something that we might need to look at from a number of angles.
Okay.
Before drawing
A conclusion.
conclusions.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, then that's fine. Now, Madam Bate, today's edition of the program is about bringing legal solutions to the problem. First and foremost, we are happy with the fact that you are aware of this issue of increase in rents and the landlords and all. What is your appraisal about the whole situation? What can be done from the side of the tenant, first and foremost, because we are the ones who suffer. I believe that you at one point have lived in the house that the landlord is controlling. So you can understand that plight, that pain.
Definitely.
So what can be done? Because we are crying. The increase of rent is on a daily basis. And madam, they don't even renovate the houses.
It's very sad, and to be candid with you, before I talk about the aspect of the law,
Yes.
it's something that has really touched the heart of the least Cameroonian,
Yes.
especially in the southwest region.
Yeah.
Yes, and the issue of the increase in rents is I'm trying to use a word, you know,
That
to
could
really
better,
describe
yeah.
that could better describe it. It's appalling, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Yes. Notwithstanding, now on the side of the law, it's technical in the sense that before a tenant enters a house, you know, we would always advise as lawyers that make sure you sign a tenancy agreement. Or before a tenant enters a building, make sure you sign a tenancy agreement or a lease agreement, sign something. And I'm saying so because we lawyers, we work with documents.
Okay.
We state the facts clearly.
Okay.
So that in case a problem comes up tomorrow, we can refer to the document that was drafted.
Okay.
But when you get into a house, you don't sign any document, you don't sign a tenancy agreement, or you have a building for business, you don't sign a lease agreement. When something comes up, it's challenging to refer to anything because there was no document to start with.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I would advise that every tenant, whether in a house or in a building for business, should endeavor to sign a tenancy agreement or at least a lease agreement to secure your stay in the place. Why? Because these documents carry specifically the things that are supposed to be binding on the tenants and the landlord. So if the landlord goes away from the contents of these documents, you can be able to hold him to that.
But ma'am, who then drafts that tenancy?
That is
The person who drafts a tenancy agreement is a lawyer. That's the job of a lawyer.
Okay.
And most times it is the lawyer of the landlord who drafts the documents. If
So-
a tenant has a right to insist to the landlord that you want a tenant.
About an agreement, something that is put forth, we look at it. Do we agree? Do you agree with this point? Are you okay with this point? What adjustment can be made? So
Yeah.
we I think that
Yeah.
the tenant do not have a say in that agreement. You are just
Considering the fact that the landlord
yes,
is the landlord's lawyer.
yes, the agreement has been drafted by
By
the
the
lawyer,
landlord's
which is the
lawyer.
lawyer to the landlord.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't you see that it's problematic?
Okay, let me say something about that. The first challenge is that the average Cameroonian is not ready to be educated about minute things as per the law. First, when it comes to agreements, agreement happens between two parties, and the two parties need to agree before they are paying their signatures to the document. And the lawyers would always insist, if you are penning your signature on this document, it means that you have accepted all the terms that have been stipulated therein. So you need to be certain. Personally, as a lawyer, one of the buildings I manage, I prepared the tenancy agreement, and I indicated to the tenant, you guys come to the office, let you go through this tenancy agreement. Before you sign, I always say, do you concur with the terms that I have written in this tenancy agreement? Is there anything that you want to be adjusted?
Or maybe added or
Yes,
subtracted.
added or subtract, because you are putting your signature to it, and tomorrow if you don't comply, you will be held accountable.
Yes.
So it's important, it's an agreement. It's rather unfortunate that many Cameroonians are not educated, so they go ahead and just sign anything. Those who know me per se, they know that I will always tell them, don't put your signature on a document until you're certain. If you don't know or if you don't understand the terms of a document, call a lawyer or get to a lawyer. Take the document to a lawyer. You have a right to request the other party to give you some time for you to go through the document and either understand or get it to a lawyer to help you understand. So that when you sign the document eventually, you know that you have appended your signature to something that they can hold you accountable for.
What about the situations or the scenarios where the landlord just takes the tenancy agreement and brings it to you and says, okay, as you're paying the rent, and usually, because I feel like the tenancy agreement is supposed to be a document you give me before I even pay the rent.
Definitely.
But most landlords bring it after you have already paid the rent.
And most times, what is usually done is, okay, they tell tenants, you want to get into this house, this is how much for the rent. You have to pay, like, I'm saying so because I manage houses, some of which are in Boya. So I tell the tenants, there is a tenancy agreement you have to sign. It's not just about you paying your money. You need to know what are the rules and regulations of this building. You need to know what you can do in case something comes up against you in this building. You need to also be secure, because in the tenancy agreement, there are clauses for the tenant's benefit and there are clauses for the landlord's benefit.
Exactly.
It's not one-sided. So the tenant needs to know some of these things, and I insist, come to the office, sign your tenancy agreement, so that in case of anything tomorrow, we are sure that you have something. But the challenge I have faced personally is, most tenants in my experience really do not care. You have to keep going behind them and they're asking you, but I don't already pay my rent, like you say. So what is the problem? Why do you keep on coming behind me to sign this? They don't understand the implications of this document.
Now, madam, you're even talking in the side where the tenancy agreement is actually available. What about the landlords who don't even have the tenancy agreement? What about the landlords who, if you even ask them about the tenancy agreement, they tell you, have we not already agreed on the rent? What's be the problem?
Definitely. So there is what we call in law tenancy at will.
Okay.
Yes, tenancy at will is a situation where there is no tenancy agreement.
Okay.
I'm saying tenancy at will because under tenancy law in Cameroon, there are, when it comes to eviction, for example, you know, we have a number different notices that are given to tenants, maybe 6 months or 3 months or 1 month or 1 week. So in a situation where there is no tenancy agreement, that's what we look at as a tenancy at will. So in this circumstance now, I'm saying so because there are some landlords who are not educated about tenancy agreement. There are some people who are actually old. They do not have time for documentation and all of that. And some of them will say they don't even have the time or the money to hire a lawyer to help manage their building. So most times they try to manage on their own. And truly in those circumstances, they don't even know what's a tenancy agreement. In that kind of a situation, if something comes up and maybe they have to let go of the tenants, that's where a tenancy agreement comes in, because now it doesn't stipulate any specific number of months, or in fact there is no tenancy agreement in that agreement. Yes, in that understanding, there's no tenancy agreement. So this now comes to help to say, okay, if for example a landlord is given a notice to quit to a tenant who did not sign anything, we can say, okay, we're going to follow the verdicts of a tenancy at will and issue that in that line.
So in a tenancy at will now, how many months can
It's
be
1
given?
week.
Tenancy at will is one
It's 1
week.
week.
My goodness.
That's why
gracious.
it's good to sign a tenancy agreement.
You have 1 week to sign for you to.
No.
have 1 week
In a
to
tenancy
leave.
at will, if
Okay,
you
tenancy at
if
will.
the landlord wants to evict you, it is 1 week.
They give you a 1 week's notice.
1 week
That's
notice.
what the law requires.
So at the end of the day, we are at risk.
That's why I always advise let tenants sign a tenancy agreement. Sometimes you are even lucky that a landlord understands. Another thing that comes up is, so for example, if a tenant pays 1 month, like if a tenant pays monthly, pays rents monthly, so the law gives a little allowance there for the landlord to issue a 1 month's notice for the tenant to leave the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, this is quite interesting.
She just mentioned something about in the tenancy agreement that are benefits for the landlords
And benefits for the tenants too.
What are some of the benefits for the tenants apart of the fact that they are paid for their house to stay? What other benefits?
So a tenant has a right not to allow any person to enter into his premises. So for example, if a landlord needs to do any renovation in the building, he cannot just come and enter your house and just start repairing or doing whatsoever. You need to be notified, and now that depends on what is indicated in the tenancy agreement. For some tenancy agreements, some lawyers will indicate that the landlord needs to give the tenant at least a week's notice in writing. Sometimes they'll say a day's notice or 2 days notice, either in writing or orally, depending on how. That's why I say that the tenant needs to be able to agree with the landlord before signing that. So those are some of the benefits, because sometimes you just see some caretakers who just come and knock your door and they'll say they want to repair something. And
One
if
can
you're-
repair that
yes.
tap for this, so
And if you're not vigilant, someone can enter your house and take something
yeah,
and
still.
you cannot. Yeah, so they give you these benefits inside of this tenancy agreement, so that nobody just walks into your house on the basis of I was sent by the landlord.
To renew
And if
it.
the document indicates that you need to notify within 1 week in writing, then a tenant, it is, I'll say like how we say in the law, the burden is on the tenant to make sure that he receives a notice in writing before allowing any person to come into his premise. It's very, very important. Other benefits that the tenant has is, okay, like for example, we have some clauses like noise clause, for example.
okay.
Yes. So I'm saying so because in drafting is a very broad.
Yeah, because that's what about
law.
coming to say like
Yes.
what are the
Drafting-
what are the segments of this tenancy agreement?
Drafting is a very, very broad field of law. So there are a number of things that when a drafter is putting in a document, he considers a number of aspects.
Okay.
For some people, they might include the noise clause. For others, they might not. There is also the illegal clause. Some people would include it, others will not include
What's
it.
the illegal clause?
So the tenant is not allowed to do anything illegal in the building.
Oh, okay.
So in case there are illegal activities happening in the building, the landlord has the right to evict the tenant based on illegal activities.
Wow.
Yes.
So okay, and there's something you talk about still on that tenancy agreement. Maybe you just share with us, because we see this overnight increase of house rent without informing tenants.
Yes, exactly.
In drafting the tenancy agreement, are there any clause about house
Definitely.
increase?
Definitely.
And what can prompt an increase in the house rent?
And also, most important, I think you should also tell us how, like say, after how many months
Yes, all those
will
things.
you increase the rent, and
Because-
after how many months will you do a renovation? Because this is some of the things. These are some of the things that happen. A landlord allows you walk into a building. Like now, if you go on the streets, there are so many people who just paid for a house last month, but the house was not renovated, and the landlord will wait till about 6 or 9 months and just gets up and says, "Please, you have 3 months to pack out of my house because I want to renovate." But I entered this house, you did not renovate. While I was in the house, you did not renovate. Now, all of a sudden, you just, and sometimes they don't even put it in writing. They just send it through the caretaker. That's another problem that we have in this society, the caretaker.
And that takes us back to the tenancy agreement. Because when it comes to increase in rents, there is a clause in the tenancy agreement that stipulates that.
Yeah.
So a landlord cannot just get up. If your tenancy agreement, for example, indicates that the landlord has a right to increase rent within this time frame. If that time frame has not arrived, the landlord has no right to increase rent based on the agreement he has signed. So that's why I say your tenancy agreement is very, very vital. We minimize it. Sometimes some people would mockingly say, well, is it not just something that they will just write? Unknown to them, the drafter or the lawyer is the legal expert when it comes to this. The lawyer takes special note of the provisions of the law when it comes to tenancy before drafting this document. And the document is not just signed between the tenants and the landlord. The lawyer goes ahead, because in the Southwest region, we lawyers act as public notaries. Yes, so the lawyer goes ahead to sign or to authenticate this document as a notary, which gives it even more weight. Because without this tenancy agreement, sometimes when issues come up, a landlord or, for example, a tenant cannot take the landlord to court.
Okay.
Because you don't have a document. That's the number one document the court needs to see. If the document does not exist, you don't have a case.
But then again, the document does not exist in most cases, but the landlord takes tenants up.
That's why I'm saying that it is the responsibility of the tenants to request. It's rather unfortunate that in our society now, the quest for houses is increasing. People are looking for houses helter-skelter, and the houses that are even available are appalling.
Exactly.
But because people are desperate for houses, the crisis has moved a number of people from different towns into Boya. Boya is jam-packed.
Exactly.
Boya that had just one road and people can move, now has become like Douala, where you have traffic up and down. The place is full. People are tight in the town. The request for houses is on a rising every day.
Yeah.
So it's very important for a tenant to know that in as much as you are in a haste to get into a house, make sure that all the necessary things that have to be done before you walk into that house are met. Because if they are not, when you get into the house and the landlord comes and tells you, I want to renovate, it's challenging for you to hold that against him.
Yeah.
Because to start with, you didn't have any documents, any agreement, nothing. And I would say that I will not advise for an oral something or an oral agreement. Most times in Cameroon, we live by the oral agreement, and when something comes up, it will be a word against the person's word.
That's true.
So it's important to put in writing everything that has to be put in writing.
But again, I still feel that the law is unfair here, and the law is favoring the landlords.
Over the
Because she just had a case where there is no tenancy agreement, and the landlord takes the tenant to the law, and the case is not dismissed because
is the landlord?
Yeah, because but
I've even had a
if
landlord.
there is no tenancy agreement, I think the case should be dismissed for everybody.
Yeah, if Evangelist is saying something, Madam, I've had a scenario where, okay, now take for instance what I went through.
The emphasis of a tenancy agreement should be on both sides.
Okay, now Evangelist, I'm coming. Now look at what happened to, let's say, my case. All right, the landlord walks in and tells us that, not even walks in, the landlord comes to the compound and says he is increasing rent, and not just increasing rent, but he's increasing the number of months we are supposed to pay. So this is what pertained when we were coming into the house. We paid 10 months plus 1 month caution, and at the time the house was 15,000, the room was 15,000. After that 10 months, we asked, so what are we going to do after that? She said, no, you can pay monthly, but she will not really advise for the benefit of the tenants. 1 month is really not that much time. So pay 2 months, 3 months. So after the 10 months, I paid 4 months. Now, after that 4 months, which means in total I've been now in that house for 1 year, 2 months. Okay, now after that 1 year, 2 months, that very girl, I want to pay my rent to her. She tells me, oh, she's sorry. Her father has now said the rent will no longer be 15,000. It would be 20,000. And now the father takes only 10 months. And we were screaming. He did that increase at the same time, the number of months and the rent. 20,000, and if you don't give him 10 months, you pack out of his house. He knows who he is. He has worked before with the legal department, not as a lawyer, but the law enforcement. So you can bring police people and they will pack you out of his compound. And we did not know who to go to. And then we asked the lady, but is this not what you said? She said it can change at any time.
So that's why I said, when you don't sign something, it's your word against theirs.
It's really your word
Yes,
against
but it is not okay. I will say this clearly. It's not okay for a landlord to increase house rent without notifying the tenants. A tenant, one of the benefits that you as a tenant has is that you have the right to be notified of any increase. Because you need to make a choice whether you want to stay or you want to leave. If you want to stay and continue paying, that's up to you. If you want to leave, that's up to you. But the law requires that you are given ample time for you to be notified on an increase on rents. And most times that happens under the canopy of that document.
I really want us to look at the fact that most landlords don't even want to draft a tenancy agreement. What can be done? Because sometimes you've seen a house, you really want a house. As you just mentioned, the desperation is high now. And you ask the landlord, please, what about the tenancy agreement? They tell you there is no tenancy agreement. If you don't want the house, you go. What then can we do?
It's quite challenging. You know, evangelist, I'm sure you're a man of God, so you know that one of the gifts that we have been given by God in this life is the gift of free will and choice. Yes, we have that. And it's very, very sad, but a landlord is the owner of his house, whether we like it or not.
Exactly.
If he says that I don't want to go by tenancy agreement, that's up to him. But then now, when one thing, the tenancy agreement is important because it covers you, the tenant.
Yeah.
So if the landlord gets up now and says that, okay, he wants to increase the rent or he wants you to move out because of this, a tenancy agreement indicates your duration of tenancy. So he cannot send you out of the property before that time expires. You see how that's important. And many a times landlords will say they don't want to go through the stress of getting a tenancy agreement because they don't want to pay lawyers to do it. But unknown to them, it's very, very vital, because if they don't have it and issues come up, it's challenging to even do anything about it. It's rather unfortunate for the tenants who, like you say, a landlord tells you, I'm not doing a tenancy agreement. If you want the house, you take it. If you don't want it, you leave it. Please, as a tenant, it's already showing that a number of things will change in that house and you will not have a say. If it's I don't really know what word to use now, but the desperation, like I said, is really playing a very, very serious role in the society now.
Yeah.
And I think that we as citizens of Cameroon, we need to be educated to know that we have a right to tell the landlord, I would not stay in your house until I sign a document. And if you don't want me to sign a document, if I've paid, you give my money back and I leave. And some of the landlords will tell you, I will not give you a tenancy agreement. Either you stay or you leave. Please walk out immediately.
Now, in the case where
Because
you have
most
paid,
of those landlords, they will end up
frustrating you.
In the case where you've paid, request that your money be refunded. I'm sure that when you pay, it's important that when you
Your
pay,
receipt.
receive a receipt.
Yeah.
Because if you pay and you don't get a receipt, tomorrow when you say you want your money back, if the landlord tells you he did not give you money, what are you going to do?
It's the receipt you
So
present.
it's the receipt you present. Some landlords will tell you, I have collected your money, I've already given it to the other tenant that left from here because the person had paid up front before you came, and so I don't have the complete money to give you. You have a right to take the landlord up.
Okay.
Look for a lawyer. Get
Evangelist,
to a
calm
lawyer's
down.
office.
Calm down.
Get to a lawyer's office and inform the lawyer that this is what has happened. You have a right to take the landlord up because you have paid money for something that you have not used. He has given you a receipt and you have a receipt. If he refuses to refund it, you have a right to take him up. And when you take him up, he will not just pay what he has to pay, he will pay damages for your time.
Wow. See, I'm very certain this is what we needed. I think Evangelist, even though you're agitating there, I don't know why you're agitating, because she's answering the questions and she's giving us a solution.
As she's answering the question, she's creating another question.
No.
no, that
Evangelist, you cannot keep us here like
no,
this.
no, I'm not, see, she's a resource person and we need to understand her.
Yes.
But again, I want to think that all these, the housing crisis is a sector that is not organized. Because I don't know if there are regulations to organize a sector. I don't know if landlords.
This is the sector. This is the sector in front of you already.
Because if actually there are regulations to organize that sector, landlords should be able to understand that they need to do things in the right way, like she has pointed out. Because why would a landlord not issue a tenancy agreement? Why would the landlord not use the services of a lawyer, which is a competent authority to draft such documents?
But when they want to evict you, they know a lawyer's office.
When they want to evict you, they know a lawyer's office. So I just feel that the authority that be the government need to step in, like we were saying on Wednesday, to reorganize this sector. Let's identify those who own houses, because a house is a business that are doing. And I want to think that just like any other business we find along the street of Moloko here, they do pay taxes. We have council that come in to see what they want to regulate. We have taxation, we have sanitation, and so on and so forth. All those people coming in to see how they can regulate the sector. So I think that this is what this real estate, especially those who are involved in construction and renting of houses, are really lacking. But again, I just want to find something again for resource person, still on that tenancy agreement, still on the increase in rent.
Yeah.
Maybe probably she can share with
Evangelist,
us.
please just don't say I'm getting you. Please, we'll beg whoever is behind the studio to help us and curb the noise. We are begging, as it is affecting us greatly where we are. We are just begging. Please reduce the noise, or maybe you take it outside. Evangelist, you can continue.
So rent. Now maybe she will help to share with us what factor do we have to take into consideration, landlord have to take into consideration to increase rent?
What should be what does he do in that house